Up next, we have someone who knows that the strength of any community isn't in avoiding conflict, but in how we navigate it. Sarah Hempel is the Senior Manager of Community Experiences at Blanchard, where she focuses on building inclusive spaces, fostering collaboration, and helping people grow as leaders. Conflict is inevitable, we all know that, but disconnection doesn't have to be. In this session, Sarah will show us how empathy, trust, and even a little role play can turn tense moments into opportunities for deeper belonging and stronger relationships. So please join me in welcoming Sarah Hempel. I'll clap.
Thank you, Beth.
How you doing?
Wonderful. I hate to, there we go. I was going to say, I can't share my screen. Got it. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Beth, for that warm introduction. I'm excited to be here. As she said, my name is Sarah Hempel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you today. As we get started, I love seeing where folks are calling in from. So just drop in the chat where you're from, where you're joining us from. We're going to dive in really quickly because 30 minutes goes fast into something that we all face, but we don't always talk about, and that's conflict. But more importantly, I really want to talk about how we can lead through it with empathy instead of letting the conflict pull us apart. And so while the lens that we're looking through today is really focused on community, I believe that the tools that I'm going to share with you are something that can be used in your daily life. I use them personally and professionally as well. So here's me, yes, Senior Manager Community Experience at Blanchard. And like Beth introduced, I live this every day, navigating, connections, potential moments of tension, and really working to turn them into opportunities for connection. Connection's my superpower, I like to say. So I invite you to scan these QR codes. And the first one is to join the Blanchard community if you'd like. It's a space for everyday leaders to connect, to learn, and grow. I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn when this is done. And also check out Blanchard's newest app. We're going to chat about it a little bit more at the end. It's called Leadify, but I'll share those links again, and you'll also have access to the slides when this is all through. So in our 30 minutes, like I said, it will go so fast. Our objectives today are really to recognize early signs of disconnection and conflict, use 2 empathy-based tools that I will share with you to help shift the tone and outcomes, and then try the mindset and skill set elements from Blanchard's Leading with Empathy framework. I also want to add that every time you see that little chat bubble on the screen, that icon means we're going to have a conversation in the chat. So get your fingers ready to start typing and kind of engaging with me. So here's our first chat. I want to know, what do you all think when you hear the word conflict? When you see the word conflict, what's one word or phrase maybe that comes to mind? I know for me, I see the word conflict and I instantly think run. I'm like, stop, this is not good. I don't know that I've ever met anyone who enjoys conflict, but I'm hoping today that as we think about conflict, we can really take the opportunity to not be so scared of it. Yeah, I see discomfort, I see fear. This is great. These are all feelings that I can relate to as well. Yeah. Being careful with your feelings. Yep, absolutely. The reframe that I want you to hold on to through today's conversation is really that conflict is feedback, not failure. I was a former educator for 15 years, kindergarten through 3rd grade, so about 5 to 8-year-olds. And I always told my kids that feedback is a chance for your brain to grow. And I really want to think about conflict in that same way. I want to share a story with you that I think probably everyone on this call can relate to. In the Blanchard community, we have gated sections, and that can frustrate people. These sections are gated because you might need to have be a facilitator of Blanchard content or have a particular membership in order to access those areas. So I've had emails come in across my desk and they say, "This is too confusing. I don't know where to go." Or my favorite, not really, line, "I'm done with your community." Um, Even though we have 7,500 plus members, I still take that super personally, as I'm sure some of you can relate. And not long ago, I actually had a member that they sent, gosh, they reached out to probably three different folks on my team. They sent me 3 to 5 emails, and they, like, everyone ended with, "I'm done with the community." And I was like, you can lose tone in an email. And so I was like, instead of firing back with just like, "Okay, have a great day," I was like, I'd like to have, offer to hop on a call for 15 minutes with you. I'd like to chat with you face to face. And they said, "No, I'm not in your time zone. I'm in New Zealand. This is going to be difficult. I am in Minnesota in the United States. So, right, other side of the world, a day apart." And I said, "That's okay. Like, I really want to chat with you." And so we took that time, and on that call, it actually turned out to be just this simple misunderstanding of where to click inside. But the tone of those emails that came through to me were harsh. They were kind of aggressive. And this is where empathy came in. I led with curiosity. I asked them to walk me through their experience so I could see it through their eyes. I could hear when they're like, "Ugh, I don't know what to do right here." I chose helpfulness, making space to really hear them instead of rushing to try and just get it fixed and move on to my next email. And I used self awareness to manage my own defensiveness so that I could respond calmly. And that combination not only kept them engaged in our community, it really gave me valuable feedback to improve the experience for all of our community members, present and to come. And that's the power of empathy, is it transforms conflict into connection. So conflict isn't the problem. The breakdown really comes in that disconnection. When people go quiet, they assume the worst sometimes, or they completely shut down, like that email I just told you about, "I'm done with your community," right? That is what erodes community or team trust. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What does disconnection sound or feel like in your community? Go ahead, type it in the chat, share with us. And while you're doing that, I just want to share, in the Blanchard community, like I think most of our communities, we have a lot of lurkers. And if you haven't heard of the 99-1 rule, Google it, but I'll give you a quick summary. It says that 90% of your community members are just going to read. They're just going to lurk, right? 9% will engage a little. They might comment, they might like something, they might upvote it, but only 1% is going to create. That 1% creating new forum discussions, etc., like that can feel like what you're saying in the chat: silence, deafening silence, crickets. But that doesn't mean that they're really disconnected, even though, from my point of view, it's super frustrating. So disconnection for me honestly shows up in ways like that email that someone says, "This is too confusing. Why do I have to create an account to be able to attend your event? I don't understand. I don't want to give you my information." And that's my signal that it's really time to pick up the phone, hop on Zoom, drop them a note in Slack, not to defend why we chose to set it up the way we set up our community, but to connect with them as a human first. So here's the key. When people feel unsafe, they shut down. And we, as community leaders, can't decide if they really are unsafe, if they don't feel a psychological safety in that space. We can only meet them where they are. And empathy doesn't mean we have to agree with others. It just means let's connect. So lots of chat. I love the involvement in the chat over there. You've heard from me a lot. I would love to dig into some tools. I love going to sessions and walking away with some actionable tips that I can go implement. So the first tool I have for you is active listening. And you might say, okay, Sarah, like active listening's been around forever. That's easy. I know what it means. But I want to encourage you, it's not listening to reply, but it's listening to really hear. And this is tough. I'm going to challenge you to go home today to your partner, a friend, or maybe even a colleague and listen to them for 3 minutes straight. Do not interrupt them. Do not ask any questions. Simply listen. I remember when I was challenged to do this about a year ago, and I tried it with my wife. We were probably like 2 minutes into the conversation, and she looks at me and she's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not talking? And I was like, oh, I'm just listening. Keep going. And it was so hard for me. She was so baffled. But that's when it hit me, and clearly it's stuck with me to today, that so often I listen to respond. I listen to fix something, to be the problem solver. And that's not really actually helping. So now my wife and I, when she gets home from work, we start conversations with, hey, do you need me to help solve this? Or do you just need to vent? Or do you want to tell me about a celebration, like something that you did? And that actually is just as much for her to identify what kind of conversation we are going to have as it is a reminder to me that I don't need to solve everything. And sometimes I just need to listen. Active listening can also mean mirroring back what you heard. So saying statements like, what I'm hearing is, or validating, that sounds frustrating. Oftentimes when I get emails in the community where people are a little fired up, they missed the event, they can't find the Zoom link, I don't need to necessarily apologize. It's not something I have to own in the sense that I need to say, I'm sorry, but I can absolutely validate their feelings. I sense you're frustrated and I'd love to help you. Here's a solution. And being that this is a conference with folks from around the world, just like our community is a global community, I would like to remind you that listening cues are cultural. This was something that I learned in the past couple of years. In Japan, Aizachi, and I hope I'm saying that right, I've practiced, is the little act of making some noises. I see these signals. But in the US, we talk about eye contact. I remember being in elementary school and my teacher saying, eyes on me, or my parents, look me in the eyes. If you're not looking me in the eyes, you're not listening. And quite frankly, that's not necessarily the case. Listening can look different everywhere, even within the United States or your country. So active listening isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Tool 2 comes from Blanchard's Leading with Empathy framework, and I'm really excited to get to share this one with you today. It's both a mindset and a skill set. So truly empathetic leaders use a combination of respectful questions and thoughtful responses to get the best out of people. And at Blanchard, we call this the Leading with Empathy mindset. It has 3 parts that I kind of shared in my story at the beginning: curiosity, helpfulness, and self-awareness. But I want to take a quick minute to break it down here. I also want to tell you, this is like the 50,000 foot view of this mindset and skill set. So we're going to go fast because we're already halfway through our time. So curiosity means showing a sincere interest in what people care about, their feelings, their experiences, and their goals. And I think that as community leaders, this might look like asking our members, what topics matter most to you right now? For our team, at the end of every event that we host, we have attendees fill out a survey. And one of the questions is, what else do you want to see in the community? And that curiosity has led us to bring in some really cool events and speakers that our members want to engage with. And that just makes our community more successful, right? Helpfulness is the generous intention to be of service. And for me, a great example was our community coffee events. So earlier this year, we hosted 6 community coffees in person in the United States. It was super fun. If you're on the call earlier when Beth mentioned that in-person events are making a comeback, folks are excited to connect in person for that deep, meaningful connection. And we quickly heard from folks around the world, what about us? Because like I said, we are a global community. We have members in over 100 different countries around the world. And so I could have brushed it off. I have zero budget, so it's not feasible for me to go host these coffees around the world. But instead, I reached out to some leaders in New Zealand that are in our community and partnered with them to co-host Community Coffee in New Zealand. And just last month, we ran 6 coffees, 4 in the United States and 2 in New Zealand. And now we're working to scale that model globally. And it started with empathy, and it turned into a great collaborative project. Self-awareness is knowing your own triggers and how others perceive you. In community, this really shows up in those tough threads or those heated emails. And so I encourage you that before you reply, pause and ask, am I coming across defensive? Or maybe do I need a second set of eyes on this before I post it or before I respond with this email? That little pause of reflection can really make the difference between escalating something or resolving it. So my question for you to reflect on is, how do you seek to understand what your members care about? When have you ever given a member grace or co-created a solution with them? How do you check your own tone before you respond when tensions are high? So take a moment. You can feel free to drop it in the chat or just kind of think about that as we move into the skill set for leading with empathy. As you are looking at this, which of these mindset traits show up most for you? You can type it in the chat: curiosity, helpfulness, or self-awareness. For me, it is helpfulness. I love the opportunity to help others. I think it goes hand in hand with community work, connecting folks, and that power of connection is my superpower. I would love to hear, what is your strength? Curiosity, helpfulness, or self-awareness? I love this, Susan. Thanks for sharing your in-person event. I wish that I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. So fun. Fantastic. I see a lot of these coming through. Self-awareness, helpfulness, great. Thank you all. Let's go ahead and shift over to the leading with empathy skill set. These are really the practical skills that we can use as community leaders to give our members what they need to help them feel supported and engaged. So the first skill is communicate intentionally. And when we think through the lens of community, that means checking in regularly. So not just waiting for members to reach out to send that email that they're confused or frustrated, but I challenge you, when you think of someone in the community, drop them a DM. Hey, I was just thinking about you today. It doesn't have to be some big to-do. You don't have to send them with some mission or something. It can simply be, hey, I was thinking about you and I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Simple. And then when you're in a conversation, it's as simple as saying, tell me more. Or why does this matter to you? Because you're showing that you're not just scanning, you're not just asking questions, but you're truly listening. The second skill is feel their feelings. And I want to pause. This doesn't mean you take on someone else's emotions, because that's heavy, right? But it does mean you acknowledge them. So if a member is frustrated about a process or confused about access, empathy could look like, I hear that this feels complicated, before you respond, before you offer the fix. It's about relating to their challenge instead of dismissing it. So again, you can go back to those communicate intentionally questions and ask them to tell you more. It may be a feeling and emotion that you have not experienced, but if you give them space to explain and share with you, I think you'll start to be able to empathize with them. It also means letting go of assumptions. So the school teacher in me wanted to see like 80, 90% of folks engaged, active, commenting, creating content in the community, because that's like an A or a B in the US kind of grading scale. But remember that 99-1 rule that we talked about earlier. Oftentimes, silence just means that people are observing. It doesn't mean that they've totally checked out. So I had to reframe that assumption that I had around community spaces. The third skill is respond thoughtfully. And this is really where empathy meets accountability. So for community leaders, it might look like choosing a calm, measured response when someone's challenging the rules instead of reacting defensively, or possibly helping to redirect a heated thread without shutting down the conversation completely. And those thoughtful responses really balance compassion with boundaries. So we're not lowering our expectations, but we are meeting people where they're at. Aside from my day job, I have an LGBTQ nonprofit. And oftentimes that community work means that I have to take time to educate others. So again, I have to remove my assumption that their hateful comment is because they're a really angry person or they don't like people in my community. But oftentimes I find it's because they just don't know. And so when I take time to have those conversations and educate them, they, a lot of times, more often than not, they're willing to listen and learn and engage in a really meaningful conversation. So together, these three things help us build communities where people feel both supported and accountable. And when you have that balance, connection's going to deepen, and it's going to deepen even when there's moments of conflict, which we all know are unavoidable. So I'd love to know from you, which skill comes most naturally to you? So you can just type A, B, or C in the chat for which one comes most naturally, and also maybe which one would you like to strengthen. So I'd love to hear from you. For me, my most natural has taken a long time to get there, but responding thoughtfully is probably what comes most naturally to me through lots of things that have happened in my life, some different trauma that I've been through, and I've really been forced to pause and not just fire off a response. Awesome. I see some answers coming in the chat. Fantastic. Now, Beth, I hope you're ready. We are going to put this into practice. It's going to be super quick. You have 3 scenarios on the screen. I would love for you to pick one of these. You'll be in groups of, I would say 2 to 3 if we can, Beth, for 4 minutes. And I want you to use one of your empathy tools, either active listening or a component of the Leading with Empathy framework. And pick a scenario. You can both pick the same, or you can pick a different one for each of you. And just think about, how would you respond to each of these?
You know what, Sarah?
Yeah.
We are unable to do breakout rooms.
Okay, cool. So that was new. Flexible.
I thought you were like, you're going to do some role playing. I was like, okay, I'm ready for role playing.
I mean, we could, but we can also, I see there's some questions in the chat, so we can definitely keep moving. So thank you. What I would encourage folks to do then is, I have 3 scenarios. You'll get the slides after. I would encourage you to take a peek at these and then just reflect. Think to yourself, how would I respond to this? How could I respond to this a little bit differently now that I have a couple more tools in my toolbox? And then, as we are nearing the end, and I think we will have a little bit of time for some Q&A, I'd like you to pause and finish this sentence. One shift I'm taking into my next conflict moment is, you can either jot this down, type it up on the computer, you can drop it in the chat if you're comfortable. I'll give you just 30 seconds here to think through that. As you're wrapping up thinking about that, I want to remind you that even small shifts, like pausing before you send an email, pausing before you jump into that conversation, validating what you're hearing from someone else, or maybe choosing to lean in with curiosity, can really change the trajectory of a tough moment. So it's a solid reminder that I have to give myself as a mom to 5-year-old twins often, um, because many times not taking that pause can lead to a huge meltdown at the exact moment we need to head out the door to go to the doctor's appointment. So I know Beth said it earlier in the chat. All of these things I'm sharing with you are honestly great tools to use with your kiddos. So as I wrap up, I have a few resources for you. The first one is Leadify, which I did mention. If talking about leading with empathy gave you a good taste and you would like some more, I encourage you to check out Blanchard's newest app. It's completely free, available in Google Play and the Apple Store. And it's really about empowering the next generation of leaders. We've got so many free insights, podcasts, and tools like Leadify's AI Mentor that I have on the screen there. I actually typed in, that's a screenshot. I said, I'm heading into a tough conversation and want to lead with empathy. What should I do? And Leadify's AI Mentor gave me this great plan to help me prepare for that conversation. The first article I listed, 6 Ways to Foster Empathy, is one that I wrote for Leadify. So would love to see you check that out. And if you're really looking for a deeper dive, the full Leading with Empathy experience is available as an on-demand kind of class that you can take at your leisure on the Blanchard Leadership Marketplace. So you can scan that QR code, or my fabulous friend and colleague, Valerie, is also dropping links in the chat. So she will drop the Leadership Marketplace link there as well. And then, yeah, we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So thank you. Thanks for being here with me. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Sarah. For those of us who are in this earlier time zone, I'm like, this is a great way to start my day, and just like a great reminder for like moving into all of the things I'm going to do today, all the people I'm going to talk to, maybe some technical difficulties we'll run into with this event. So it's just thank you for all of these wonderful reminders.
Yes, absolutely. This has been fun.
And yes, I feel like it's funny to be like, "Oh, this is how you parent a toddler," but, like, truly, I feel
Yeah.
like the stuff you were talking about, like, it's not complex. It's, like, pretty simple stuff, but, easily forgotten, so thank you. I have
Hmm.
some questions.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were really just absorbing and obviously chatting, in the chat, but I would love to know in terms of, like, where conflict is constant. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm lucky in CMX, people are pretty patient, people are pretty kind,
Yeah.
but there's communities, I'm thinking like gaming, I'm thinking like activism
Mhm.
communities,
Yeah.
right? So how do you prevent burnout when you're trying to lean into the tension, or you're like leaning into this conflict and you're not shying away from it, but it's kind of all the time?
So I know that when during your last session, you talked about how to use AI. And I would say this is a great opportunity to lean into AI. I use we have an enterprise license with ChatGPT for Blanchard. And I think of it as a thought partner where it takes a little bit of that heavy lifting on the emotional side away from the burnout, leaning into the tension, asking it questions. How could I respond to this with empathy, without completely shutting down the conversation, and getting some advice from your thought partner, ChatGPT, but also picking up the phone. I say phone, Zoom, Teams, whatever, because I believe, and I know if it's constant, it's hard to call every single person. But especially if you can have some community champions that you can help to lean on. So that's maybe a volunteer that can help, not engage in the conversation in a way that they are in the conflict, but they're almost helping the group remember to take a step back. Um, and be they're like the little positive light that comes into the space to help the conversation along. I think those are a couple of powerful tips.
That's great. And I think even the point about asking ChatGPT, like, we're like, okay, will it really be helpful with empathy? But even just the act of like going to ask ChatGPT a question is a pause. Like that's
Yes.
your pause moment where you can take a deep breath instead of responding to an email out of emotion. You like take that minute and you're like, okay, wait.
Well, and the other piece that I do too is I will sometimes have formulate my response, but I sometimes over index on the empathy side of things and it gets really long and verbose. And so I might share that with my chat GPT and say, I need a little bit of help shortening this email up, keeping the empathetic tone and curiosity, but maintaining professionalism. And then it gives me something back that I can tweak a little bit more and then send it off. So again, it's that pause, but also ensuring that I inject a good bit of curiosity as well.
Nice. Great reminders. Great perspective shifts. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody in the chat. Please, one more round of applause in our chat for Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like not complex stuff, but it's so simple, which makes me feel like we should all be able to just implement these tips into our everyday life with our partners and our toddlers and our friends and our bosses. Else who comes into our world.